greetings and thank you for joining me. Now in this video I'm going to be talking to you about preparing for your ritual. So this could be a ritual, a ceremonial ritual, or maybe you're doing a spell casting type of ritual and you're wondering about what is the process between living in your everyday life, living in the mundane we call it, versus moving over into the magical space. And there is a little transition to get there, but we don't talk about it a lot in videos, or if you're reading about a spell to cast on a website, you're not going to get this whole package of information before that spell, because firstly, it would be a lot of information to try and read and digest. And let's face it, everyone wants a instant spell these days, or something that's just going to work like a good old Bewitched show. And that isn't the case. There is preparation that goes on before a spell, but it also depends on the type of tradition that you come from. So I'm talking specifically to people that are on the left-hand path, or perhaps into more of a darker worship or spell casting style. So if that is you, stick around. I'm going to talk about that in this video. So as a bare minimum, what you really want to do is think about grabbing some candles. And the candles that you'll need for any type of left-hand path ritual are, guess what color? That's right. If you said black, you are 100% right. So you really want to collect quite a few larger style candles. And these are your altar candles. So if you something like this, like I am doing a little ritual with these candles now, but you want candles this size or larger, because these candles will just be lit when you're having the ceremony or the spell casting session, and the purpose of these candles is for lighting. So it's mood setting, because you want your temple or your sacred space, if you will, to have that feeling or that presence that makes you feel magical. And also, if you're inviting other elements into that space, you want them to feel welcome and magical as well. So getting some large black candles would be totally awesome. And you probably want a large white candle as well. So how many candles will you need? Well, that will really depend on the lighting that you have in your area. So I recommend that you're going to have enough candles that lights the space. So you're not going to have any other external lighting on, and you're not going to have a TV on or anything like that. It's just you and the lighting. If you're doing this outdoors, then you might be lucky enough to have the moonlight. And maybe a lot of candles are going to blow out anyways if you're outdoors, so that's something to consider anyway. But you need enough lighting in that space that you'll be able to read your Book of Shadows or your notes or your petition. So the next thing we'll talk about is clothing. What should you wear? Now, traditionally, you're going to wear black clothing, and whether you're going to wear a long black robe or just black t-shirt or shirt and pants or black jeans is totally your prerogative. What I say is just make sure that it's comfortable. So if you're doing any sort of ritual that requires a lot of movement, you want to make sure that your clothing isn't restrictive or puts pressure on your stomach where you're going to have to run off to the toilet in the middle of a ritual, which is not recommended. And let's just say you have to start again if you do that. Actually, there's no going to the toilet in the middle of your ritual, period. So if you're wearing a long black coat or robe, they're totally awesome, and I do that too. But for example, now that I'm in Hawaii and it's always humid, wearing my long black coat can sometimes feel like a weight loss sweat jacket, which isn't too bad, I must say, but it can get really restrictive, and it can sometimes push me in my rituals and make me go through things a little bit faster just to be able to take the robe off. And that's not recommended either. What I love best is wearing my birthday suit. So it doesn't matter what your birthday suit looks like. It's perfect the way it is. And you've got to learn to love it yourself. And that's just not a flippant little statement. You really do just get really comfortable with it, because if it's just you in your room, and the spirits, I'm sure the spirits aren't going to worry about your fashion sense or your body shape. And well, actually, I just got a response from a spirit then. That's true. Okay, so some spirits, if you're really looking for help in your love life or how you can improve a certain situation, they can give you some feedback on what to do to actually improve yourself or your image. So let's talk about the altar table. You can buy an altar table, a small altar table that's specifically for the purpose of these rituals or for your spell casting. If you have more room in your house, then of course you can set up a beautiful altar and just have this as a dedication space or a ceremonial space. But for many of us, especially if we're just starting out, we don't have that option. So you may need to do some work either in a forest area, or maybe you're doing work in your bedroom and you're thinking, what can I use for an altar table? This is where you need to get a little creative and step away from your ego and the need for having a perfect altar space straight off the bat. If you need to use a bedside table, that's cool, or you can get a fold-out table that you can set up for when you're doing your ceremony and then fold it back down and put it back under your bed. Or if none of that is an option, get a cardboard box that you can either paint black or put a black tablecloth over it, and then that is your ceremony altar box. And then, of course, when the ceremony is finished, you clear the energy and you put maybe your altar tools back in the box, and then you pack that away somewhere. You've got to get really creative right now, because if you want to do the work, you can't wait until you have all the tools that you would desire to have. You've got to get started right now with whatever you do have. That's more important. Well, for example, for my hexing rituals, I have its own altar in itself. And what I do to dress this altar, because it's not a traditional altar table, I put a black tablecloth on that. And this tablecloth actually I've had for many, many years. It's been consecrated, and it holds a lot of energy just in itself. So when I die, and if no one chucks this out, it's really a very, it'll be a haunted object, if you like, because it's done so much work and it has so much energy, and it's so full of all types of waxes and oils and all sorts of stuff that I just use it time and time again for this type of work. So get yourself a tablecloth. And I like black satin, but you can use whatever type of tablecloth you have. But the tablecloth you get and use is the one that you use only for that purpose. You don't go and then have a dinner party and use it for your dinner party. You have your magical tablecloth, okay? So you put that magical tablecloth over your altar table, and then it's your magical altar space. Yep. Now, the other tip I have on preparing for rituals is try and remember your incantations or some of the main verses that you'll be using all the time. And this is because, and I know it's really hard in the beginning because you're learning so much information and it's a little bit of overload. I totally get that. And you will need to write it down in your book of shadows probably, or have some notes. But just try to start to learn and do some like repetitions, maybe 10 minutes preparation every day. If you're really serious about this, learning the left-hand path, you really want to start putting into practice what you will be doing probably for the rest of your life if you're truly serious about it. So you're going to want to know a few of the main ceremonial style rituals that you'll be saying, a few of your incantations or invocations. And then the rest of them, the smaller spells or so forth, you can write them on a piece of paper or have them in your book of shadows that you can refer to. And if it's a petition, if it's a spell, you'll probably want to be able to burn that after you say it, maybe in your cauldron, and be done with it. Or maybe you want to be able to put that back in your book of shadows. It's totally up to you. But what you won't be doing is throwing that on the floor or into a garbage bin, because nothing personal like that should be just left in the mundane world. You've got to really have that in prepared in one of your magical books or disposed of properly. Now, something else that's quite important, but I don't want you worried about right now, is the actual position of the altar. And that is for two reasons, because if you're in the northern hemisphere, it's going to be different than if you're in the southern hemisphere, and vice versa. And also the type of spell or ritual or ceremony you're going to do. So sometimes you'll want your altar to face north, other times you'll want it to face south, and so forth. But rather than getting overloaded right now, I just rather you worry about actually doing the ritual, getting the altar prepared, and start the work where you're just going through the motions and feeling good about yourself and seeing that nothing bad happened just because you did this work. That's more important than getting that altar direction correct for now. The next thing I want to talk about is the actual preparation of your environment. Now, when you're thinking about doing magical work or ceremonial work, think about the intention of that ritual. What you're doing is inviting spirits into that space. And so you wouldn't invite honored guests into your space if your space was a dirty mess. So what you need to do is prepare the space by cleaning the floors, making sure all the mess is packed away, wiping over surfaces. And then when that's all done, when you feel like the space is good enough that you would invite your most honored guest into that space or your temple space, and I don't care if it's your bedroom or whatever, it doesn't matter, or if it's a forest floor, you clear away the leaves and you make that space look special. And once you've finished doing that, then you go and cleanse yourself. So you have a shower, you put on fresh clothes, you feel good about yourself, you feel clean. And then lastly, you go and have a rest. So you'll, about half an hour before the ritual or ceremony, you'll actually not worry about anything. You'll start your meditation, you'll start your visualization exercises. You could put on some music that's really going to set the tone. And you just go into that space and you get into state and raise your own energy rather than sitting around stressing about it and then get into the ritual. You're actually then prepared to go into the ritual and start the work, but you're in the right headspace. And in saying that too, you want to make sure all your electronic media is shut off. You want to make sure your phone's shut off, that you, if you're at home, you make people understand that you're doing something that you don't want to be disturbed, or, you just create the environment where you're not going to be disturbed. Because the last thing you need while you're doing a ritual is for a phone to be blipping that there's a message or that there's an email coming through and it's blinging, and it's going to distract you, and then you're going to look at it. Because when you're doing your ceremonial work, there's nothing that's as important than the work that you're actually doing with spirit. So if you want spirit to pay attention to you, you have to pay attention and hold your attention with spirit. So I hope this has helped you in really looking at the preparation work that you need to sort of consider before you actually begin that ceremonial work or your spell casting work. This is going to make sure you, as a solo practitioner, really has the best chance of success for your spell casting. Well, I hope this has been really helpful to you, and now you actually understand a little bit more about what it takes from getting to being in the normal everyday world and then either into ceremonial magic or spellcasting mode. There is some things that you need to consider and do before you get there. It's been awesome sharing this information with you, and I'll catch you next time. Bye for now.